Sing it. I thought I'd catch you guys singing today. Good morning. How are you guys? Jim, I know you're a singer.
I'm a proud car singer.
Uh-huh. You know, I used to do that in the car where you just whip the volume down real quick and try to catch everybody singing. Didn't work. All's good. How are y'all?
Good. Doing good.
How are we feeling? Summer is almost here, and it feels like it was I mean, obviously we're still in spring, but it feels like it took a while to get here.
Yeah.
See, I feel like it's gone by fast.
Oh, really? Okay. I felt like it went by slow. I guess everybody's perception's reality, but that's probably a good talking point with the market, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm only dealing with buyers, I'm going to have a way different experience with the market than if I'm dealing with only sellers, or if I'm dealing with $1 million price points versus $300,000 price points. My experiences are going to be very different, right? I guess so. That's kind of fun. All right. Overall, what do you think is the feeling out there? What's everybody saying before we even dive into it? What's everybody saying?
Well, what everyone's saying at a baseball tournament is what I'm hearing a lot. There's just a talk of the interest rates. So, and what that means for the market is the underlying theme of every conversation I have with the public.
Yeah. Okay. Jim, what about you?
Yeah, same. Yeah, walking around church or birthday parties for the kids. A lot of people asking, how's the stock market affecting the market? How's the interest rates affecting the market? What are you seeing? A lot of people feeling like it's lower than it really is.
Yeah. It's interesting. My neighbor's selling his house and he was asking me, and his two comments were, one, I think a big part of our neighborhood is underwater. I go, what do you mean? He thinks everybody's going to panic and go. I think the general consumer thinks recession means people are going to lose their jobs, they're going to lose their house, and that's just not the reality. That's not the case, right? Like the job market's strong, the housing's strong. Yes, interest rates are going up. And he said, well, I just think a lot of people, they're not going to be excited to pay those rates. And I said, well, you got to understand there's two very distinct buyers in the marketplace. And I'll use cars as an example. The last car you bought, did you buy it based on payment or did you buy it based on car?
Yeah, there's two categories of buyers for sure. There's a payment buyer. Absolutely, 100%.
I think there's a lot that's buying based on emotion and value of house. And there's and not even just luxury, just people that are more seasoned in life that aren't sweating that monthly payment as much. I mean, they're still responsible around it. But I remember like when I first bought my first, super sensitive to that car payment, right? Mm-hmm. And if I bought a car today, it wouldn't be about the payment. It would be about what car do I want to go buy, mm-hmm. right? And I think the housing market tends to lend itself a little bit like that too, meaning I know my stepdaughter, when she bought that townhouse back in February, we've talked about, it was absolutely about the payment. She was in an apartment. She knew what she was paying, knew what she could afford, and everything had to do with payment. So I think that it kind of funny, I didn't plan it that way, but the conversation, everybody's perception is their own reality in these conversations. What do y'all make of that?
Yeah, I think that speaks to how just wildly hit the Great Recession hit everybody. everybody. You had the largest market or the largest age bracket during that time get hit directly, but then you had their kids who are now entering into that market or who have been entering into that market. They were of age to really understand what was going on. And so you've got all these people that are a big part of your market that have this really unhealthy look at, well, prices are going up. That means we must be entering in a bubble. Anytime you see these prices going up, it's going to be in a bubble, when that's really not the economics of it all. And so I've been hearing that conversation for years, and now, especially since they've gone up so much. But if you pay attention to Gary and what he says in reunion and watch the price inflation line, we're just now back to where we should have been. That's how deeply we got hit during the Great Recession. But I think you're exactly right on that.
Well, I think like a big part of our listeners are out at Cedar Creek Lake. People aren't buying lake houses today based on affordability and mortgage rates, right? They're buying it because they want to go out there this summer and spend time on a lake. And it's an emotional purchase, and it's a family purchase, right? And it's just so drastically different depending on if you're a first-time home buyer versus all the above, right? So I'll just reiterate, that's why I think this call, or being in a conversation, if not this one, around economics and talking points and having that knowledge and the ability to engage in conversation is so paramount in real estate success. Not to say that we're the only conversation, but we're a pretty doggone good one. I think so.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump in. Oh, I'm disabled. Can somebody let me share my screen? There we go. So the good news is inventory came back up. Rockwall, I was like, whoa, what happened? But if you go here, we're higher than we were here. And so that means we're still at a high point. Last 2 weeks ago was our highest point. But if you just took 2 weeks ago out of it, we're still on an upward trend of active inventory in Rockwall County, which I think is a really strong thing. Hang on, my screen's not right. There we go. All right. Kaufman, obviously, same kind of deal. It's a little bit all over the place. But when you get into these bigger counties, I think this really tells a good story. If you leveled out the points, you can see that the line is on an upward trend of active inventory. But at the same time, what's important, there's 950 active properties in Dallas County right now. What's important though is, doesn't mean we're selling less houses. It means there's actually active inventory going up. 555 sold in the last 7 days, 530, 573, 533, 475. We actually are climbing in properties closed, which I'm not sure the media is necessarily showing that yet. But active inventory is certainly climbing and on an all-time high. That's a big deal. Collin County, same story. Trend line going up in active inventory. You can see 613 is the highest point. Solds 346, same deal. We're holding that line on closings and pendings, right? So it actually is more houses coming on the market. And that tends to be a really strong value point. Denton County, same story. You can jump through here. Henderson County, their market's a little more seasonal with the lake, but it's still a high point here with 67. Take out 3 weeks ago, it was still the second highest point in the spring market. So new inventory coming. Their closings bounce around a little more, but 21 is still a decent number for the middle of May. What do you take from it? What do y'all see that I'm not seeing?
More competition. Yeah, and we've really got to watch our new listings that are coming on. We are back to pre-COVID numbers. I was looking at the Rockwall numbers yesterday, and so halfway through the month, we're at somewhere around 220 new listings in Rockwall County, where pre-COVID we were averaging about 450. So we're right there back to pre-COVID numbers. We're hanging right there. We were kind of on that line back in April. So as we're doing that, and the pendings aren't increasing, but they're staying the same, we've got to watch our active competition, because where we're in extreme market, little changes will mean a lot.
Yeah, 1% of 1,000 is still 10. And those 10 could make all the difference in the world, right?
Yeah.
And then you get bigger, and 10% is 100, right? So it starts to move pretty quickly. But I think that's a really good point. I don't want to use the word shift, but I also want to use the word, you price a property based on the next 60 days, not on the past 90 days these days. And when you're pricing a property today, I think that conversation looks very different than it did 60 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a little more of a reality conversation. I think you're going to see houses sitting for longer than they have been, and your sellers are going to get nervous. I think it has everything to do with how you set the expectation at the listing table right now, and that skill set. Speak to that.
Yeah, that you said the word skill set and conversation. You can't hide from the fact the more that you can inform the sellers right now, it's going to make your job easier. But if you do hit these little pockets of where you may hit low showings, or you don't have 20 offers in the first week, they're not just panicking at that point. So it's really just letting them know upfront, this is what we're starting to see with the market. I know this is where we have been, and have the numbers. You can print the numbers. You cannot dispute what is physically in front of you. And so if you can present them the facts as part of your presentation, even though it's not just specifically about the house, let them know about that market, and it's going to make your job a lot easier. And it's also going to prevent somebody that isn't as knowledgeable from coming in and saying, yeah, you can list your house for 25,000 more.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is back to the word, it's skill set, right? Erika, what would you add?
I mean, there's still two different conversations in my mind, depending if you're talking to a seller or a buyer. I think knowing your numbers, what Jim said, and actually knowing, we don't have to be an expert in economics, but we do need to know how the economics affect the market, and just being knowledgeable and educating our sellers around that will probably help us win the listing. I think the best salespeople are the best educators. So it's not convincing them, it's just showing them data to support what they need to do. So yes, it's a skill set. And I think time needs to be spent every day looking at, one, what the media is saying, what is actually happening, and then being able to coach around those two things.
There you go. Perfect. So here's a question. So in Inman, it said, a comprehensive guide defining inventory in today's market. So what percentage, and I'm going to put everybody on the spot, of business is going on outside of the MLS?
As far as like pocket inventory?
That may never even make it to the MLS.
I'd say I'm probably high. I'd say 10%.
Okay.
I was thinking in like that 5 to 8, 6 to 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between 5 and 10% would be my guess. But that means that out of every 10 houses you sell, one was off market. That seems a little high, but it seems to be a hot topic. I've got another article today we're going to talk about, but this is the comprehensive guide to finding inventory in today's market. I thought it was pretty interesting in the sense that it's pretty old school, normal stuff. And we've been talking about this forever. And I made mention of one of the conversations around how would you sell real estate if there was no MLS, right? We made that conversation, and here's all the tried and true methods. Look inside your database, your CRM, go through your phone, work your referral network, circle prospecting, farming, door knocking, open houses. By the way, we teach all this in Ignite, right? FSBOs and abandoned properties, be on the lookout for life changes. I think this is one of the biggest ones that I think most people miss. And a real estate trainer taught me early in my career, like, quit asking people if you know anybody looking to buy or sell real estate in the next 30 days, and start asking more people, hey, do you know anybody that's getting married, or unfortunately is getting a divorce, or just had a baby, or their kids just went off to college? They're all posting graduation photos on Facebook right now. Those are life changes that cause people to move. And if you ask better questions around that, you can get more concrete opportunity for inventory. Obviously, orphan neighborhoods, I don't really know specifically what that is, but neighborhoods that were built by builders, face-to-face time, leverage technology. What did y'all get from this? Tried and true old school methods.
Back to the basics. So stop overcomplicating it is what I got out of it.
What'd you get, Jim?
Yeah, same thing. It's the biggest thing whenever I'm training one of our agents is don't try to do just too much. Just rely on just evergreen real estate, things that work year after year.
You know, I think social media is amazing, and I also think it hurts some of our agents in real estate. And what I mean by that is they rely too much on social media and don't go back and do some of the tried and true methods, right? Like, I used to talk about how communication evolved from, you used to actually get excited, go to the mailbox and get a letter from grandma. Well, that went away with all the print media, right? And then used to actually there used to be a movie where made fun of you hitting the button, send received on the email, like neurotic. And nowadays you don't get excited to go check your email most days. And, and then, communication changes, direct messages, text messaging, all this stuff. But if you really understand it, it's the conglomerate of all of it that makes it go around. So having print media, direct digital media, email marketing, text marketing, you going at it at one method is not enough. There's a concept in marketing called stacking, which says I need to hit you from different what levels. And I really think this is an ode to going back to some of the old tried and true methods. And I just would encourage people around that. Anything else on that?
No, I like what you said about the social media. I think we use it as a crutch from getting face-to-face time, and from, I was thinking about it, of what you were saying with people getting married, of doing engagement searches on Facebook. But what about going out to the wedding planners and actually networking with them and putting in some time and effort?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you could do. I found this interesting. Dallas still hasn't found a solution to short-term rentals. What do we think of this? Is Airbnb, it's very real in a lot of places around the country. I don't hear a lot of it in the Dallas, Fort Worth Metroplex, but what do we think of it?
One of the things I kind of thought about is I think in any market, whatever you have enter into the market, an open door or Airbnb, whenever it first comes on, the weights get out of balance. You have it come way down and everybody is on that wagon, and that is the hot topic, and everybody falls in love with that. But whether it's just natural market, the economics, or we have government regulation come in, the market kind of weighs itself out, right? And so I think this is kind of what's happening here. I think it's interesting that the city of Dallas is trying to figure out this plan of how to help the entire city out. You've got to, this usually falls on HOAs where they say there's not going to be any short term, but outside of just fining, I don't know how you can just blanket an entire city like Dallas.
But I think there's a bigger conversation here, Jim. Is a few months back we were talking about how much inventory was being gobbled up by institutional investors, and the only two ways you can slow that down is HOA restrictions and city ordinances, right? And I think those are probably going to become more and more prominent over time if the institutional investor still starts playing in the residential space. However, I think Airbnb is going to get caught in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. Anything, Erika?
Well, it's one of those things. It's not a problem till it's a problem. And it's brought to light because of our shortage of inventory. So, I mean, this wasn't even, to my knowledge, wasn't even a big deal 4 years ago. If it would have been addressed 4 years ago, we probably wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right. What do you make of this?
I just think it goes to the conversation.
We're millennials, right?
Yeah. Well, and I'm not really sure that we have to categorize people like that, but the supply and demand isn't changing regardless of right now what's happening with the interest rate. So back to what we started the conversation with, what we're hearing in the public, this is just information to have a better conversation with what's actually happening. So what did it say? 4 million homes. Oh, it would take a decade to get us back to where we need to be with inventory. But to me, it just gives you knowledge to have a conversation that we're in a different type of market. It's supply and demand. So it's going to stay a good market.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I read in this article, and I'm reading between the lines a little bit, but I actually think the housing market's a little bit insulated from any kind of recession coming. And I think this is a big part of it, is the demand for housing is not going to go away. And there's not enough inventory because the builders are underbuilt for years to really, it's just going to keep our industry strong in spite of interest rates.
Right.
And I think lenders are really good at being creative and figuring out adjustable rate mortgages and all kinds of stuff to figure out how to get people into property. I think you're going to see an assumable mortgage again. There's a lot of people that have FHA loans or VA loans with good interest rates that they could market as assumable. But at the end of the day, I think what I read in this was, hey, there's good forecast for demand for housing, which is a good forecast for our industry long term. I think we talked about this last week, and what I see in this slide, this was the economist at the National Association of Realtors. And what I see in this slide is if you look at 2022 forecasts, it says we're going to sell 9% less houses in 2022. Probably okay. I'm not sure Dallas Fort Worth will be exactly that, but it will probably sell less houses. But the home price is still going to appreciate 8%. I think our area is going to be in the double digits. So when you think about the total dollar volume of real estate that's sold, it only went backwards 1%. If these numbers hold true, which says that's a flat market, right? Then if you look more importantly at 2023, the US government wants our home price appreciation to be what percentage?
Isn't it 4 to 6? Or talking about a year?
They wanted it
Appreciate
4%.
Yeah.
They'd see 4% is the healthy number. So in 2023, they're actually predicting home price appreciation to go back to the normal 4% with an additional 1% backwards in unit sales, which still says we'll sell more real estate. So what I'm putting interpretation to this is the pandemic created abundance of real estate sales. And we're paying the Pied Piper a little bit this year with just weirdness with interest rates and maybe some home sales going backwards and all the above. All that being said, I actually think we're resetting the market to have a pretty normal year in 2023.
I agree.
And this slide kind of says that. And I think it's really important to point that out.
Yeah, I agree. I think we start seeing interest rates during 2023 start sliding back down to whatever normal is, but yeah, it won't be 3%, but I don't think it's going to be what it will be. So I think 2023 is going to, but that also shows me that as an agent, your GCI doesn't have to change. This isn't something you have to be scared about.
No, even this year.
Yeah.
Now, if you playing the unit game, and you understand how to get your unfair share of units sold. If you're trying to play a dollar volume, if I sold 12 houses in 2021, I still sell, or I sell only 10 houses in 2022, I'm probably going to make less money because the price isn't going to cover the difference, right? So you have to be holding the line on the units. That's the most important thing. But just kind of purpose of making things people understand. So inflation got high. But then the inflation actually slowed for the first time in the month of April. If you read here, the rate of inflation in April slowed for the first time. And that means all this interest rate mambo jumbo of hikes actually did its job and caused the trend of inflation from going up to peak and start to come back down just slightly, which means we're moving back to a better economy. Make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, what y'all hear? What should we pay attention to? What should we disregard of whatever we said today?
So one thing I keep hearing and thinking about is the maybe it's a return or an evolution of the payment buyer right now. I know I've met with several agents that rents are going up due to taxes, so they have a certain payment in mind. So getting a skill set around that conversation with your buyers and knowing the difference between an emotional buyer and a payment buyer. Anyway, so because that's happening. People are getting priced out of their rent rates right now.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, there's a difference between national news and your local news.
Correct.
Right.
Big time.
Dallas has been fortunate even through the Great Recession. You look at Dallas's numbers, and we were tops in the nation of where we were in the marketplace. And I think we're going to continue seeing that. So I think we're going to see some numbers from other places in the country. That doesn't necessarily mean that's Dallas, but it's going to scare people because they're going to translate it. That's happening to them, same country. It's happening here.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, guys. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Have a good week.